Yeah, I just keep it steady on the magic. Do my thing, I'm healing, it's fantastic. If I fall, rise automatic. You ain't know now, you know. I'm the one raise myself like a tree from the roots. West side girl, cause she lit in the coast. East side girl when she speaks to the roots. Stay 100 cause she on with the truth. Been there on struggle, know that it pass. Only going up, yeah, the pain don't last. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. This is take off, take off, take off. Shorty like Brandy, fight like Monica. What you know about her? Baby girl rising, way to the top. Shaking the world, don't expect her to stop. Purpose so great, she get what she got. Follow her step, cause she following God. What you need more, got a heart full of gold. Even at times when it's raining and cold. Ooh, she bout take off. Ooh, she bout.
What up, y'all? It's your girl Hannah, aka Ruta, and you are watching the Uprooted Network. Today is Black Men Speak Sundays, and y'all, I got my guy Fresh in the building. What's up, Fresh?
What's good with you, Hannah? What's good? How you doing?
Man, you know me. I'm out here living. I'm getting it. Okay, we're gonna make it happen.
Most of
Man, this one, y'all don't know the backstory behind this one. Oh, it was a good time. But yes, my guy Fresh really came through for you, girl. It's gonna be a really cool episode of Black Men Speak Sundays, and I'm excited because this season is all about personal development, our journeys. You know what I mean? What we going through, and like, man, what did I? Is it has it been over a year now since we met?
yeah, it's definitely been over a year. I want to say, what was it? December 2020?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was around December 2020, or at least definitely about January 2021.
yeah,
We linked up. I definitely remember that. Yeah, it's been wild.
yeah. It's wild. Wow, it's been a wild ride. It's crazy when strangers become friends and then that you find out you might be family, right? Uh,
Hey, we just talk about that. Yeah, the family ties is crazy.
it's
I'm telling
crazy.
you, man. The 6 degrees of separation in our community is, and six might be too much. It's probably like 2 or 3 degrees of
Thank
separation
you.
from one of us, for real.
Yes, I've been saying this from the beginning of the podcast. Even before then, I was like, when you're Habesha, it's really only 2 to 3 degrees tops. Okay, it's just there's no way. Like our communities are so connected that the way you find out like how you know each other is wild. So for the audience sake, me and Fresh met each other on Clubhouse, I believe. And we were just in there like in the beginning when the Tigray genocide started, really just like advocating heavy in different rooms, different spaces, and just got to know each other over time. And then pulled up, like we were pulling up to protests, pulling up to like other things, and I seen him and I was like, Fresh, like I was like, I know you.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, right in the coffee shop. Right in the coffee shop. It's crazy. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, you just start talking. Then you tell me what city you from. I start telling you people I know in that city, even people I just met, once or twice. And then you're like, oh, yeah. Once names start getting dropped, it's like, oh yeah, like it's wild how crazy the family ties are.
Like hella close. I was like, shit, I got any cousins in the East Coast I don't know about? Let me know. Like put me on because I even though it's the West Coast, East Coast, a little bit of beef, you know what I'm saying? But it's cool. So I mean that's part of your intro. Let me let the people know who you are, right? If you want to tell them a little bit, I might have just gave them a little sneak peek about the East Coast, but let them know where you from, what you repping.
Yeah, definitely the East Coast. From New York, born and raised. From Tigray. Well, families from Tigray. And born and raised on the East Coast. Technically, right now living in Dallas. Been out here about 7 years, and yeah, it's definitely what it is. But heart is where home is where the heart is. So I'm always New York all the way. So that's what it's going to be.
Yo, let's start right there. Okay, let's start right there because let's unpack this idea. Like when we're talking about our personal journeys, right? A lot of that has to do with identity, right? And like obviously I'm wearing Nipsey today in memory of his passing, rest in peace. Like I was just listening to it in the car, but you know how like he always say, where you from, cuz? Like on some
Definitely.
real epic proper, right? It's like, where you from? And I think that's probably one of the first questions we struggle with, right? Because it's like when you say home, you have to say, wait, Tigray, wait, New York, I'm in Dallas, like, and just even trying to identify with a certain place or group. Like, what was that process like for you, being like, I'm from Tigray, but like I'm in the States, you know?
I'm gonna be real. I mean, just growing up in New York, New York is a lot of my friends. I mean, I grew up in, the Tigrayan community. My dad is pretty prominent in it, the whole family. It's a really tight knit community out there in the tri-state. So, but of course, you know how our families are. They always want to raise us as cousins. Like, oh, that's your cousin. That's your cousin. Even though it's not technically blood, that's how we were brought up. But the love was there. So, I'm still close with everybody I grew up to this day, like their family, and I love them as such. So that was always good. But just growing up in New York, I always wore New York on my sleeve. And then it's like, and I probably rep New York more than I repped, I didn't even rep Tigray like that. I always repped Ethiopia. That's just the way our family was growing up. Even my parents, they'll say you're from Tigray, but it's Ethiopia first. That's just the way we were raised. So I was more so an Ethiopianist than all about Tigray. And always repping New York, to the people in the States wherever I was. And then this war started, and you kind of look back and you kind of learn your roots. And I think it is from the learning your roots where I really got the sense like, oh, I should have always been repping Tigray. I didn't even need to be repping Ethiopia like that. So that's really where it came from. As far as the New York, I mean, I'm still gonna rep New York all the time. I've been out here in Texas 7 years, and I'm still gonna rep New York. I mean, even though people be telling me like, I got cousins in New York right now. Every time I come back, they're like, yeah, you're not from here no more. They be trying to tease me, but it's all good. But
hateration, holleration.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I mean, I think it's that knowledge of self. I mean, just going back to Tigray, it's the knowledge of self. Once I got that, then I would rep that even harder than anything else. And it's actually a benefit to us being first generation, here in the States, because I had a lot of friends that they're African American. They don't have like those concrete roots back home where they could be like, yo, I'm from here. I'm from and they have it nailed down. Unless you do an ancestry test or, something like that, they don't have it like we have it. And the fact that we had it all this time, and, some of us always had that knowledge. A lot of us are learning it, late, but better late than never, so, but the love is there. So that's all that matters in the end.
That part. Okay. Better late than never. Like I'm noticing too, right? Like I think the part for me, and part of why I do Uprooted to begin with, is that what you said, knowledge of self, right? Like I wrote that down. I was like, yes, like knowledge of self. Like, you always hear those quotes of like, you don't know yourself unless you know your history, because you don't know what it took to get you here. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it was kind of the same thing. Like growing up I always grew up in the Tigray community, but I always said I was Ethiopian too, right? Like it was the same thing. And then I realized over time, like, well, technically, like I don't really interact with like all of Ethiopia. Like the more you started to like unpack, like, oh, there's 83 languages. Like that's a lot of languages. Like, you know what I mean? And sometimes when people boil down Ethiopia, they only talk about 4 different groups, like 4 ethnic groups. And it's like, no, there's hella more ethnic groups that exist in this country. Like it's not, like the States, right? Like you're going to see a lot of different ethnicities. You know what I'm saying? The difference is most of us just look alike, but like culturally we're hella different.
Yeah, you're right. And I think like certain groups of Ethiopia are propped up, and it's done in every country. Every country does that. I mean, there's certain countries where you go where the fair-skinned people are more propped up. You'll see them on the billboard, so on the TV screens internationally. When you actually go to the country, you realize that 80% of the country is dark-skinned. So it's kind of the same thing in the sense, like you don't see, the Southern peoples and nationalities propped up as Ethiopian. You know what I mean? Internationally, you're not going to see that. Or the Somali or the Afar, it's a certain group, that's propped up over the rest. And I mean, it's done everywhere, but I think in Ethiopia, with the amount of diversity that it has and the amount of history that it has, and who actually own certain sections of that history and how it's gotten misconstrued over the years. I think that's something that definitely needs to get unwrapped and throughout this war that we're fighting. And that all comes through the knowledge, you know. My parents didn't really teach me about it. I kind of got a lot of it through, you know, this war and talking to other Tigrayans and just doing my own research, just having more interest in it. But I mean, it's always good to have it now. Always.
It's like I can say, like, with my whole chest, like, I know where I come from and I know what's mine, and I know who I belong to, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's like a different feeling, because once you're secure in that, it don't matter where you go, because you always know who you are. You know what I mean? Like, you can carry that with you. But I think, like, when you're walking in life and you're still kind of questioning that, it makes like things very difficult, because you're trying to achieve some type of level of success, or like this idea of who or what you're supposed to be. And it's like, you over here trying to fill in all these blanks. Like, I don't know, like, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, who I'm supposed to be repping. Like, what is all this damn pressure of, like, you got to be an excellent student? Like, like, there's just so many things that come with being an immigrant and being first generation that it's like beyond me. And it's cool meeting y'all from different states, because I'll be like, I wonder what I would be like if I grew up in New York. And then I can like talk to you. And I was like, oh, that's it right there.
I know, yeah. Even when I first started meeting a lot of Tigrayans, like just from all over the nation, when they first heard me talk, they couldn't believe I was I was Ethiopian or Tigrayan or Habesha or anything. They thought I was, just straight up African American. So just off the way I talk. So it's funny though. It's funny, but yeah, it's even like, when you're kind of walking around and then you're kind of hazy about where you're from, you kind of let other people fill in the gaps for you, and you let them tell you where you're from. When essentially you can find out for yourself, and then you can end up telling them, to where you can give them a rebuttal to any kind of misinformation that they're trying to put on you. So it's always good. Like, the knowledge itself, it makes you like comfortable in your own skin, where you can tell somebody else what it is, and no matter what they say, it can't phase you, because you already know. You got the knowledge and you got the vision, so there's nothing they can do to phase that. So
it's like, when you know your worth, you know what I mean? When you understand, like, the rich history you come from, the sacrifice, you know what I'm saying? Like, the just difficult journey that your parents took. Like, it's like, I feel like this war has demystified anything that I thought. Like, I feel like, growing up, you kind of like make everything a fairy tale. It's like some type of movie, like, imagery, like, oh yeah, my parents, they were refugees in Sudan. And you kind of just disassociate. Like, you remember, like, growing up and, like, people would make fun of you, like, oh, you African booty scratcher, or like, them kind of dumb things, or they'd be like, oh, starving Africans. And I remember, like, seeing commercials like that and just being so irritated. Like,
yeah,
there's always like this position of, like, starving Africans. And I would go home, I was like, who's starving? My mom feed me, like, too much. Like, I'm over here overweight damn near, because, you know what I mean? Like, actually hella overweight, like, at different periods of my life. But it was just that, trying to, like, disassociate what those things were. And it was like, no, we're not starving, we're being starved, right?
Yeah.
Like, famine is not the same as like, you know what I mean? Like, that's man-made. So, like, even demystifying those things and understanding, like, no, your pain was caused by somebody on purpose. It was intentional. It wasn't like, oh, we're in a drought. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we have those too, but there's so many methods around that.
But the crazy thing about it was, when I was a kid, I thought it was actually a drought. Like, that's what I thought it was. I didn't know that Ethiopians were starving Ethiopians. Like, that was the furthest thing from my mind. So, and even the way my dad was trying to bring me up, he was like, oh, all Ethiopians are good people. All Ethiopians love each other. Like, he was telling me all this stuff. And then I remember, being in New York, it was easy, because it's funny too, because he would say that. But if I really was like on it, I realized that all his friends were Tigrayan. He didn't hang around anybody else. So if all Ethiopians love each other, why aren't you hanging around everybody else? Because I realized, like, everybody he hung out with was Tigrayan. And then when I moved out to Texas, it's more of it's a mixed community out here. A lot more Amharas, a lot more Eritreans, Oromos, that I was just around. And I started to realize, like, yeah, it's a little bit different. Like, it ain't what my dad was teaching me as I was growing up. So, I kind of caught on fast, but and then this happened. And I caught on real fast. So
that part. And man, it's like, it's disheartening, right? Because when I started this platform, it was really like, let's unite as a diaspora and like, let's put our people on, and it's like that's still the mission, but it's so hard now because it's like everybody got hurt feelings, everybody got trauma. We don't like, it's like everybody got the Band-Aid ripped at the same time and we trying to heal at the same time. So it's really hard to like do both things, but that's really what we need to understand is like, yeah, we might have been in close proximity, but I don't think as a region, right? Like as an entire region too of East Africa, that we really like ever got over the 80s and 90s, I feel like our parents didn't really, I feel like each group kind of handled it in their own way. And now it's like, oh, it's our generation's turn to try to figure it out and solve the problem. And it's like, damn, bro, like we got to play catch up. You know what I mean? Like that's so exhausting. Like we got to play catch up and try to like support our people and advocate and XYZ, and it's so difficult. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm on a learning curve and shit. It's like
it's even worse for me because it's like I caught on a lot of the knowledge late. Even a little bit before the war, I started to realize some stuff that was going on. And not that I said not this, but I knew that there were some things going on back home that weren't necessarily how my dad was telling me Ethiopia normally is. So at least towards us. And then I'll talk to my cousins. Like my cousin went to school out there. She came back. And then I'll just hear like stories from her, like, oh, how would they treat Ryan? And she would just say certain things. So I peep certain things like that. But it almost feels like I'm mad for multiple genocides, even the 80s and now, because I still have to catch up for that. I still got to get mad about that. Like it's crazy. But I mean, I feel like the healing part, I mean, that's probably years down the road. I don't think this ain't gonna be no quick fix. So, and I think also because like it's a bigger American diaspora. I don't know what the American diaspora was in the 80s. Like that was like in the West when that was happening. I know certain people left Ethiopia for school and so on and so forth. So they got their education. They were there for a couple of years. But like now it's like it's an established diaspora, and our way of being raised is different. Culturally it's different. We're not as easily forgiving as some of our people back home. So I think like it's a little bit more of a mean streak, coming from the diaspora based on what's going on back home. That's just what I see. Even in the way like we dealt with the war, and you hear news articles or just news from back home, certain things soldiers would do, in the war. And people in the diaspora are like, oh, I would never do that. Like, why would they do that for them, But it just is what it is. I think, like, culturally, we're just raised a little bit different. So I feel like the healing is going to be, it's probably going to be it's going to take longer for the diaspora than it is the people back home.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because I think it's like we're wounded in a different way, right? Because I feel like I've been thinking about this and talking about this with people, right? Like, as a diaspora, we feel so disconnected. You know what I mean? Like I think I don't know in what episode I said this, but it's like this feeling of not being enough of something. You know what I mean? And then like also the opportunity being taken from you to like go and learn or go be there. And it's like, damn, like somebody's like closing the door or like trying to cut the tie that you have with your family. You know what I mean? And like with your culture. And it, like, I think that's the extra layer for us is like being so far away, being outside of it, not being able to see the day to day, right? Like I think about it because I just, I lost my grandpa recently, and I was just like, bro, like I didn't even get the opportunity to know him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like let alone be able to go back home and be there for the funeral like our culture would want. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't even get to pay respects in the way that we deserve to, right? So it's just like the layers of hurt are so deep and so real that it's hard to even have conversations sometimes. Like I'll be like, I don't know where should we even start? You know what I mean? And so, like,
And
it's hard.
I mean, we don't even know the half of what's going on back home. And I don't want people to take it as disrespect. Like we're going through way more than people back home. I'm not even saying that. People back home are going through a whole lot worse than what we're dealing with. But I feel like people back home, their level of forgiveness, they're so much more forgiving than we are. Absolutely. I mean, I don't see people in the diaspora ever getting over this. And even our families, like when they came back from the 80s, I mean, they never told us anything. And it seemed like nothing happened. I mean, at least in my household, like it felt like the 80s famine, like, and my parents were going through it, you know? And it's like when they raised us, it was completely in the rearview mirror. Like it didn't, but now it's like I'm hearing stuff, stuff starting to come back up, and you hear what they went through, and you're like, wow, like you guys completely like just shoved that in the rearview mirror and never really like let it resurface. So I don't think the diaspora could ever do that. I think this will be on our minds a lot longer than what our parents dealt with, when they were our age.
Plus, it's like we have the internet, so we have receipts of everything. You know what I mean? Like it's like what I tell people is always like, this is like so psychological, like it's so mental, like emotional for us. You know what I mean? And it's like trying to express that to people outside of this experience is so difficult, and I think about what you're saying, right, with our parents is like some people right now are finding out that they had uncles, aunts, cousins, they might have had siblings that didn't make it and their parents never told them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your mom or dad might have had siblings that passed away that they never talked about. So it's like there's literally so many like missing puzzle pieces in our lives. You know what I mean? That we're like, what is that? How would my life be different if I knew that? Like, what if you had an uncle or a grandpa or some type of cousin that you actually like y'all had closely related personalities, you know what I mean? Or you guys had the same gift, right? Like sometimes like it's those generational things that we miss out on because like your grandparents are supposed to teach you those things. You know what I'm saying? Like who teaches you about like if you think about like the traditional family structure, right? And then I want you to relate this to like how you guys structured yourselves in New York, because I feel like all of our communities tried to mimic our culture in some way, but had a lot of obstacles depending on what city you're in, right? But just that idea of like your grandparents usually teach and like pass down a lot of the history and the knowledge because the parents are too busy doing the raising, like, working and keeping the household and all of those things. But if you were actually raised back home, you have the benefit of being around all your family. You know what I mean? And like you have the benefit of like living your culture to its fullest extent, and like really being in that and embracing that. And then seeing now, like when I compare, because I've spent like summers back home, and just even trying to compare that, like those small amounts of time to like growing up in the diaspora and how our communities are structured, you can see like what your parents were trying to do, but couldn't necessarily like fully flesh out because they just don't have the resources and the support necessary,
And I think, well, at least from my parents, I think that's why they tried to create like a family community. Like, even though we weren't all blood related, they say, this is your cousin, that's your cousin, just to kind of have that family feel, in the States, so because so many of our family was back home, and I'd probably only see them on times that we went to Ethiopia, and I've only been back a few times. So I mean, they tried to create that sense of family, and I mean, it worked. We all lean on each other. We all got love for our people. So at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But it's crazy, just like learning about the stuff your parents went through. Like even me, I know it hit me like early on, probably like 2 or 3 months into this war. I met somebody on Clubhouse, and I ended up finding out that her dad was from the same town in Tigray that my dad was from. And I told her, I was like, that means your dad definitely knows my dad. Because my dad was, everybody knows him. So, and she was like, no, I don't believe that. And I gave her my dad's name. And I was like, go ask your dad if he knows this person. And she was like, yeah, like, I can't believe it. Like, he really knows him. And then I ended up talking to her dad. And her dad actually knew me as a kid. Like when I was like 4 or 5 years old, like I guess we used to go to the meetings or whatever, or TDA or UNA meetings. So, and her dad actually told me like a story of how he escaped. But he actually witnessed one of my family members getting killed.
Oh, no.
Before he escaped. And I didn't know that. And then I remember I had to call my dad, and I was like, so I was getting names and everything, you know, just to make sure. And then I asked my dad, I was like, hey, Dad, you know, is this true? Like, I spoke to this person, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, that's true. How did you even find that out? And he was, that's the person, like, how do you even find that out? And I was like, Clubhouse. And my dad had like heard some things about Clubhouse. Like, he knew that's where we were all congregating and linking up and networking and so on and so forth. So he was just like, wow, like you found that on Clubhouse. But he was like, yeah, and he told me the whole story, and he told me a lot more things. And then, you know, I started talking to my other cousins, certain cousins that are here now, but they grew up there and they were adults when they left. Like, they remembered a lot of stories. So yeah, it's crazy. But I wouldn't even have gotten that. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for this. So yeah, it's wild. It's some wild story. It's some wild stuff.
Man, first and foremost, I'm sorry you had to hear that way. Like, that's
I didn't expect it. And obviously this happened 40 years ago. So but and I didn't know that family member, but you know, just to hear that, you're like, wow, like that's really what happened. I didn't expect to hear that. And he told me, he was like, yeah. He said he talked to my dad about it already, because he had to tell my dad too. So my dad knew the story, and I was like, wow. But you know, our parents don't tell us that. They never tell us that part. Like, I wish I knew what was going on in that 15-year window when they came to the States, but they never tell us. They'll tell us their childhood, like up until like the age of 10 or 12, but after 12, they don't really tell us too much, you know.
I'm telling you, our parents really swallow their pain. Like, they don't want us to know. Like, they don't want their kids to be like tormented, you know what I mean? Like, with the memories and the thoughts and all that stuff. And I tell them all the time, like, that's not how intergenerational trauma works, because your body's still going to carry it. It gets passed down in your DNA. And so we're like experiencing like difficulties or confusion, you know, and they're like not giving us the information that would help us understand. Like, you know, like how many people I grew up in the community like had a lot of anger management issues, you know what I'm saying? Or like would just be out there, because we're trying, I guess, like my question too, more so about like the New York community is like, we grew up with like I grew up in the Bay Area, so it's multiple cities together, but we were in Oakland first, and then eventually moved out to San Jose after a couple of moves, right? But like for us, it was like who was in our immediate like proximity, like automatically became our cousins, you know, and like that's your auntie, that's your uncle, you know, that's so and so, whatever. And it's like, I don't know who you are, I don't know whatever, but you my cousin, you know, like you don't you don't ask no questions. You're just like, all right, whatever. And like, even when you go out, like it almost felt rude to say like, this is my friend. You know what I mean? Like, nah, this is my cousin. Like, and it definitely messed us up. Now we can talk about how that's messing up our dating life. But at the end of the day, like our communities were like built like that, right? So it was like, you know, the moms drink budna together, like the dad, you know what's funny? The dads always go to the coffee shop, so they drink and boon together too. But like, you know what I mean? The moms will do it in the house, the guys do it out there. You know, you got church or how whatever your faith is every week, and like literally, I remember growing up every weekend, my friends would like try to invite me to stuff. And I'd be like, I can't, I got plans this weekend. And they're like, what do you mean? There's always something. Like I'm always at somebody's cousin's house, or somebody's kids got a birthday or a baptism or something, you know what I mean? There, or it's a hazin. Oh my God, I went to so much. Now my childhood makes sense though. Like, you know what I mean? Like we went to so many hazins when I was like young, and that was because the war was still like happening, but I didn't realize it. You know what I mean?
You thought they were getting drinks.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was just like, bro, like, is it me or do we go to a lot of hazins? Like, and people who don't know what we're talking about, hazans are like our funeral process, like our grieving process when somebody dies. And it's making sense, right? Like now that we have this context, I'm like, oh, I see why they did it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as well. And the thing about the Bay is like I think y'all have like a really, really big community. So everybody couldn't be your cousin. You know what I mean? Like in New York, it was a lot smaller. It felt like everybody, everybody up there was our cousin because it was so small. So it's like it wasn't even the people like that were really like close geographically, like to where I lived. It could have been, people an hour away, But like when we had gatherings, we all came together. Like everybody linked up, no matter how far. It could be an hour, hour and a half away. We all linked up. People that used to come from Connecticut. My dad, he used to throw like New Year's parties where everybody would come. The whole Tigrayan community in tri-state would come to our house for New Year's. So they used to come from everywhere, and they were all like, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, So it was all the same. It was all the same. But I wish that. I mean, I'm not gonna say I wish the community was a little bit bigger, but I mean, now it's like talking to so many people from different cities. It's like, you go to talk to people from Denver, people from Seattle, people from the Bay. It's like, man, Atlanta. It seems like the community is huge out there. And you got your own community centers and all types of stuff going on. So I'm like, man, I wish it was like that in New York. But I mean, we would just hang around each other's houses, basically.
Oh, we didn't don't think it wasn't a struggle. It was a struggle. We were definitely at a lot of people's houses. Okay. Like before we had anything, because like in Oakland, we had a community center. I don't remember, like by the time I was in elementary school, like by the time my memories actually started to make sense to me, like we had a community center. And then in San Jose, we didn't, right? Like in San Jose, we like rented a church. You know what I mean? And then they would just make it work. Like it'd always be at somebody's house, barbecues at, the park. The one thing about Cali is we have pretty decent weather. So like you can almost always go outside, have a gathering. Yeah. So it was a lot easier. Right. But yeah, even people will come up from Fresno too, because it's like a couple hours away. So we would like kind of like capture them into the family too. But it was like when we were younger, it was actually a lot smaller. Like we knew everyone. Because the only way you were getting in is if you were sponsored, right? Or if you got lucky and got some type of like a DV or like I don't know, like if you won a lottery basically and somehow were able to just come on your own. But the majority of us who came to America, like if our parents, especially most of our parents were in Sudan together as refugees. So like they weren't actually related, but they were trauma bonded. You know what I mean? Like they depended on each other for survival. And so like blood couldn't make you any thicker. You know what I'm saying? True. And so that was like how we got sponsored, right? Like to come out here. And to this day, like that, I'm still like not sure if there's actually a relationship because we be like guessing, you know what I mean? But we're like, it don't matter. I was like, blood can't make us any thicker, you know what I mean? Like, shit, we were sharing the same twin size bed, like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, so real. I mean, especially in a situation like coming from Sudan, and you've probably been over there for a couple of years, and you can imagine what it's like over there. You're basically holding on to survival, and you're still trying to get information about back, across the borders. So, everybody's sharing information, everybody's helping each other, and then everybody makes it out here, and it's the same thing. You're starting from the bottom, so everybody want to build each other up. I mean, when you go through stuff like that, blood doesn't even matter. It's not that serious. I mean, I can have people who I'm blood related to, and if I don't really know them, and I'm still gonna lean on the people I went through the struggle with. You know what I mean? So, that's just the way it is. And I mean, even going through this, I mean, I met people over the past year and a half that trust me, I'll know them 20 years from now. So, definitely. So. Yeah.
There's some real love, like, and I tell people like what they often misconstrue about us as Tigrayans, and I think a lot of people confuse my platform too. I didn't start this to be a Tigrayan platform. You know what I mean? Like, and I still don't label it that way, right? But I am a Tigrayan person, and I'm not going to hide my identity. And I like right now, my house is on fire. And like the one thing that if you understood how we actually operate is we're a community based on love, you know? And like the love is what carries us on, because it's like, for me, it's like you are me and I am you, because either one of us could have been in a different situation, but we're here now. And it's like, this is who we have to lean on. You know what I'm saying? Like these are the people who are going to understand my struggle the most. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's really where the bond and everything comes from. And just like that journey that we've all been through of like childhood and like this just unmasking of like, wow, like my parents did a really good job of painting a fairy tale for me. And as much as I was angry at first, right? Because it's like, man, you didn't prepare me. I was like, you raised me with as much love as you could, with with all the pain that you were in. You know what I'm saying? So like when people tell me now, they're like, what's your greatest strength? Like, how are you guys so resilient? How are you strong? How are you still standing? I said, I was raised by love and
Yeah.
only love. Like that was what I learned. I learned that life was hard and our struggle was hard. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like I didn't have to reach that far to find somebody who loved me and supported me. You know what I mean? Like we had that. Like our parents were good about putting us in a community. And so I'm wondering now for you, like in your grown adult age, right? Having moved to Dallas and switched your whole life up, what that transition is. Cause I know me moving to Colorado, like especially like, for me, grad school, all that stuff, it was different because I was raised in one community and then I had to learn a whole nother one. I was like, oh hey.
Yeah, so it definitely was different because I had one understanding of Ethiopians, and the majority of Ethiopians I was around were the people I was close to in New York, who basically were raised alongside me like family. So you come out here, and then now I'm around Habeshas who are not my family. Some of them are. I had some cousins out here, but and them I'm always gonna be close with because I was raised alongside them the same way I was my cousins in New York. But just the other Habeshas out here, it was real different. Like a lot of this for me, like it was not the way I was seeing it out here. Like people were a lot different, and not in a good way. So it was just like some people you just sense certain things, you sense certain biases, and I mean I took it for what it was. As far as like getting my life started, like I mean I left New York for a whole bunch of other reasons. I mean it was hard to leave my family, but New York ain't really the easiest place to like start from the bottom and work your way up. Especially now in this day and age and gentrification and skyrocketing cost of living. I just decided to move to Texas just for that. And everything has worked out. It was a struggle early on, but as far as the community, I wouldn't say I was really, really like too close to certain people. I had a really small select group of friends, and I mean a lot of associates, I'll say, and some of them probably not that close to anymore. And I mainly just stay close to my family out here, and I have some other friends who are not Habesha, so and I'll always be cool with them. But it was a little bit different. I mean, it's kind of switched me up, but like I said, like I knew we were in the right, like I knew like it was easy for me to cut them off because I knew what side of the line I stood on, and I knew where they stood. So I didn't blink twice. It didn't mean anything to me. It was like, all right, y'all on that side, cool. Like it's over. Like it was that simple for me. I didn't really dwell on it, So it was really easy to draw that line in the sand. My family, they always stood on my side, so I always gonna rock with them, obviously. But as far as everybody else and just people I met out here that were Habesha, it was I just had to draw the line, and that's essentially what it was. And we've had the conversations like slowly but surely. One person here, one person there. I'll have a conversation with them every once in a while, just in case we run into each other, and we'll talk about it. But I don't know if I necessarily trust them the way I did before. I kind of look at a lot of people differently ever since all this happened. I mean, it is that's essentially what that is.
I think like when you're even saying that, like I feel like sometimes we downplay how difficult of a transition that is, because you go from the place that you grew up in your whole life, you know what I'm saying? You have like a very strong knit community, you have like a very strong foundation, you know what I'm saying? And then when you move like pre-war, because you've been in Dallas for 7 years, right? So like this is before the war, even like you spent all that time reestablishing and creating a life for yourself. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like in that transition, there was a lot of people that were probably some type of support or comfort in that. And then to like have done all that work to rebuild your life just to have that shit, crumble and fall again, it's not an easy thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Like it does take a lot, like it takes a toll. It takes a toll on
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah, it wasn't easy, and for certain people, it wasn't easy. Like there was people I met out here that it was a lot harder to like just be like, damn, like you want that shit. Like I had to like think twice, and there was certain other people where it was just like, oh, whatever, like you shrug that one off. But I just didn't expect it, especially from people who are our age and they grew up here in the West. Like y'all literally grew up like I grew up. You know what I mean? Like y'all grew up in the States. Y'all didn't grow up back home. So like it was just weird, like to see them take the stance that they took. But I mean, I can't even dwell on it. Like I'm not here to convert nobody. So especially on a topic like that, like if you need conversion, you need help. So I mean that's just the way I see it. I mean, and I'm not the person to help you. Like I'm past that point. So, uh, but yeah, as far as the community, it was different because if I was back home in New York, I wouldn't have been. Everybody would have been around would have been on our side. Like I wasn't. I didn't grow up around anybody else or any other. I grew up around Saurians only, pretty much, as far as Habeshas. And I had other friends. Obviously, my closest friends. A lot of them were Caribbean or African American, and obviously, they always stand by me, and I still talk to them to this day, and they still stand by me on this. So, and I appreciate them for that. But as far as like the Habesha community back home, like it was also Ryan. So I didn't. Nothing in my world would have gotten shaken up, as far as like my inner circle or people I considered close. None of that would have gotten shaken up. It would have just been us, rallying for people back home. But here it was a little bit different because a lot of people I was, I would talk to or I would associate with. Certain people I just couldn't, But yeah.
Okay. I mean, I hear that because I was just like, yo, I know, because some people like that was the number one question I kept getting like on my platform. Like a lot of people were like, how do you deal with this transition of your friend group changing, your life, like the way you thought it was going to be, you know what I mean, changing. And it's like you had already had that transition. And I guess we should maybe like unpack that a little bit because the audience is like, what are you talking about? Like you moved from New York and you had like a pretty difficult transition to just figure out like who you want to be, what you want to do, how you want to work. And that's why I brought up that support, being important.
No, definitely, and I did have I did have support out here. Like when I moved from New York, I went to college in Louisiana. And graduated in 2009. I moved years. It probably was not the wisest decision. I should have probably stayed down south, but I tried to get my life started out there, and just job market wise, it wasn't working for me. Career wise, it just wasn't working for me. Felt like I was working a lot of dead end jobs, living at home. So after about 6 years, I just decided to move back to Texas. I was getting in a lot of trouble out there in New York too, probably doing some things I shouldn't have been doing. And after a while, like my family just gave me an ultimatum. I remember my dad; he was just like, "Look, like you're either gonna go to school and live in this house, or you're out." And I just chose to leave, and I came to Dallas, and I decided to get my life started out here. I got a job pretty quick, working in the healthcare field. I was working in the healthcare field in New York, so it was kind of an easy transition doing that. But after doing that for a couple of years, it just still felt like a dead end job. It didn't feel like something I could do for 20, 30 years and retire with growth. I mean, it just wasn't enough growth in it. So after a while, I just decided to leave, and I just wasn't happy about it. I was not happy at all. And the first 2 or 3 years out here, it wasn't it. And I'll be honest, like I did have friends out here that definitely were supportive. I'll definitely say that. And eventually I found what I wanted to do. I remember it was just, and the way like with the profession I work in now, I'm essentially a claims adjuster. But the way I the way I got into the field
Mm-hmm.
was the way I got into the field was I was essentially I remember I was looking on Facebook. I was actually unemployed. I was looking on Facebook, and I remember just seeing this job where I think Hurricane Harvey hit Houston and basically like decimated the city. And I remember FEMA was looking for inspectors for the homes, and they always tell you, oh, you can make X amount of dollars, and you're looking at it like, yeah, right. Like, ain't no way I'm gonna make that much. And I remember I just applied and not thinking anything of it, and I remember I got a call back 2 weeks later, and they actually wanted me to come out to Houston and did all the paperwork, did everything. Ended up working in Houston, and after that went to Orlando and worked out there. Probably about 5 months total. And after that, I was pretty much sold. Like I came back, licensing, got all that on my own, and from there, I basically just trying to break into the insurance sector. And ever since I got in, I've loved it. I have no regrets whatsoever about getting it. And that was literally on a chance. It was literally on just scrolling through my news feed, looking at posts. I never would have thought I'd be doing that. But I mean, it's what makes me happy. And even in getting in, after that whole working with FEMA, I probably had a rocky year or so after that, because I was doing what I wanted to do and I was happy. Like that was probably the best 5-6 months of my life work wise. I don't think I'll ever have a better 5-6 months of work than what I was doing right then and there. And then from there, it was just automatic.
I'm knocking on wood. Hold on, because we don't speak that way. Okay, you're gonna have a good 50-60 years. Okay,
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it.
Nah, but it was crazy too, because when I finished that gig or the assignment, I thought it was going to last for, I didn't think it was going to last forever, but I thought it'd be easy to hop right back on. And then it was about a year to 15 months where it was just nothing. So I was just trying to figure it out, just trying to break in, applying different jobs, and nothing was working. And I ended up getting depressed. I almost went back to New York. And I remember I was just working just in the meantime. Nothing that I wanted to keep, but trying to keep my eye on getting into one of these big time insurance companies. And eventually I got in through the help of one of my friends that I met out here. And yeah, I mean, ever since then it's been great. But it literally was the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. Because yeah, to even think that I was possibly going to go back to New York, it was crazy. And I'm glad I didn't.
I'm just thinking about my own life. Like, yeah, I've been ping ponging around too. It's not easy, but there's something in that, right? Like that, at least you can always go back. You know what I'm saying? That you have family that will hold you down, and that there's a community there that will support you. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But you don't want to lean on it either. I'm a little bit too independent, even when I was home.
I was like, but you go ahead. I said, I do. I'm tired. I was like, let me know somebody.
I'm too independent. I mean, I love my mom, I love my dad, love my sisters, cousins, whoever. But yeah, I'm too independent. I want to get it on my own. So at the end of the day, I want to be able to take care of my parents. You know what I mean? When they get old. And they probably won't need it. I mean, they're retired with really good, really good benefits and pensions and so on and so forth. But I still want to be able to help them, because I know, that's just you pass it on. Or once your kids are old enough to work, they're supposed to bring the parents in. That's how it is.
Oh, I know. I've been thinking that too. Me and my mom have this conversation all the time of just that balance. Because I'm in this entrepreneur grind, and it's not for the faint-hearted, let me tell you. Okay, so this is not easy, but knowing that you have a community, right? That like rides for you, that supports you, that loves you, you know, that you're wanted and loved, right? Like that gives you the safety net to like, okay, I can mess up. You know what I mean? Even though they tell us not to, like they put a lot of pressure on us to like be perfect and, you know, excel because we have all these opportunities that they didn't have, you know, XYZ. And I was like, yeah, but that's overwhelming because we have all these opportunities, you know, that you don't know how to help us get or like live through, or you know, you walk in through the door and sometimes like deal with imposter syndrome, like do I deserve to be here? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then
And
the thing about our parents and the way they raised us, they only want you to be three things, doctor, lawyer, and
doctor, lawyer, engineer. Yeah.
so it's like, I mean, and obviously, those jobs pay really well. They'll provide for any family that you have. Like, if you get into one of those three fields, you're set for life. If you love it, but you have to love what you do. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, but you love what you do. And at the end of the day, you got to do things for love. You can't do things for money. Because at the paper chase, that line isn't stationary. It always keeps moving. That finish line always keeps moving. So it's like people think, oh, if you get your first million, you ain't gonna stop. You're gonna keep working because there's more money to get. So the thing about it is, if you do it for love, though, you're gonna be good. You're gonna settle into what you love, and you're gonna be like, all right, I'm good right here. I'm comfortable right here. I love this. So that's the thing about it. I mean, it's cool to chase the paper, but after a while, I mean, you're gonna be running forever. So, and then you ain't really gonna be able to enjoy it, But if you love what you do, you're gonna enjoy life no matter what,
Wow. Okay, because you said a whole lot. Hold on, you're not gonna just drop bars and drop gems and think you about to just skedaddle over them. Like you said, follow the money, or said don't follow the money. You gotta work for love because the finish line isn't stationary.
Yeah, that paper chase. If you go on that paper chase, you're never gonna hit that finish line. You'll never hit that finish line.
That sounds like a J. Cole lyric, bro. I feel like I heard like J. Cole or Kendrick say some shit like that. Like I feel like just explaining that, right? Like the way capitalism works, you know what I mean? There's always that you're right. There's always more money to be made.
There's always more money to be made, and there's actually more pressure to make more money because you have to hold up the expenses you've already built up on the back end. I mean, with more money, you're gonna spend more, and you need more money to spend it. Huh?
I said, what did Biggie say? More money, more problems.
More money, more problems. I mean, but more love, more happiness. That's the other side of it. So if you do things for love, like you can settle in. You can settle in and be comfortable. I mean, as long as you love what you're doing, that's all that matters. I don't think our parents really like. They looked at the money. Like they was like lawyer, doctor, engineer. Those are the three things that we're gonna make a lot of money. But I mean, if you don't love what you do, then you're miserable. Trust me. I worked in the healthcare field for like 8 years. Even when I was in New York, I was working in the healthcare field, and so I was around surgeons. People making ridiculous amounts of money, $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. And some of these people were the most depressed people I've ever seen in my life. Like I'm telling you, like they used to be depressed. And I mean, a lot of those jobs are high stress too. Like it's really high stress. I know at least working in the healthcare field. I mean, you're a surgeon. You got somebody's life literally in your hands. They used to be ridiculously stressed out, like to the point where they'd stress you out. Like they'd be barking orders to you and just yelling at you, and you wouldn't even know why they're so mad. But then you realize all the stress that they're under, and then you got family, and then you got all this type of stuff. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like a lot of them, they don't necessarily love what they do, but they're doing it for a status. So I mean, it's more important to be happy than it is to be rich. Like I'd rather be okay and happy than rich and unhappy. You know what I mean? So that's just what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, you only got one life to live. I'd rather be happy. I mean, even all that money, you're not going to spend it. What point is it? You're going to pass it down eventually, and you're not going to be able to spend it all. So you're just going to work to pass it down. So you're going to work yourself. You're going to work yourself rabbit.
That's 100% facts. Because it's like, yeah, I might have passed down money, or but like, what's that if they don't know who they are? If they didn't actually get to like, if I wasn't actually present, if I wasn't actually available to like build those relationships with my family because I'm too busy, you know what I mean? like chasing all this money. And it's like, I feel like that's always been a thing for me too, that it's like I've always wanted, because I grew up with a family so present, you know what I mean, in a community that's so present in my day-to-day life, like not like not having that flexibility to go and see my family or do the things with them. And I travel a lot, so it's like being able to travel to see my family, because we're so internally displaced,
Yeah.
right? It's like I got cousins in different states, different countries. So I've always said I have an international family, and not because we're glamorous, but because we went through so much pain that like I have cousins that I might never meet. I have family members I might never ever meet or know, because like who knows where they are, you know what I mean? And it's like this opportunity to reconnect, because everybody is like, like it to me, it's like the blessing in the storm is that we're getting to reconnect and we're getting to meet each other. And it's like when the contrast is so dark, the light is so bright. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm like, man,
I mean, that's another thing too. Like traveling is like important to me. Like I'd rather make enough to where I can do all the traveling I want to do. That's what I want to do. Like I don't want to work, ridiculous amount of hours. And don't get me wrong, my parents work hard, and they're still working. And I wish my mom would work as hard as she is in her older age right now. But she needs to stop. But I mean, they're still, my parents, they worked hard throughout our life, but they still gave us time. They still gave us time. They took us out. We did things. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was just home alone, doing my homework, waiting for mom and dad to come home at 8, 9 o'clock, and then they're out the next morning. Where I barely see them. My parents were real present in my life. So, and I think that's important too. You need to be present in your family and friends' life. Like socially, that's important. Work is great. Earning money is great, but at the end of the day, like unless your bank account makes you happy, that's the only way I could see, just working yourself like crazy is worth it. But if not, I'm more of a people person. So people make me happy. So, that traveling, just doing other things. So I mean, that's real important too. You only got one life to live. I mean, there's a lot of places in this world to see. So
yeah, that part, man, because I literally I think that's also why I chose the path that I chose. I actually stayed up last night. I was rereading this book. It's called Tuesdays with Maury. And I don't know if it's really a famous book that people really know like that, but um I got it my freshman year because I took this class called Create a Meaningful Life. And don't ask me why at 18 I saw that title and and chose that class. But the book was really about, this older man. He was a sociology teacher, um, and he was dying from ALS. And so, for people who don't know, I think that's called like Lou Gehrig's disease.
disease. Yeah.
And he was talking about basically it was like his final course that he ever taught was how to die or some shit like that, like how they were wording it.
Yeah.
But he just kept saying at the end of your life, what do you have? You know what I mean? You have your relationships, you have your love, and that's what you have, the love of your community purpose, and how you create meaning is through those things. And he's like, I'm not gonna die with I'm not taking any of these things with me. All I have left is my conversations and being able to hug on my loved ones and the legacy that I was able to do with my community. You know what I mean? The impact I was able to have while I was here. And I think because I knew all of that at such a young age and, continually going through psychology courses, my professors over and over, I remember one time it just stuck in my head. He was like, I want you to understand this now so you don't become the 40-year-old sitting on my couch because you're having a midlife crisis. You know what I mean? And I think you had that early too. You were like, I can do this healthcare thing. I can keep paying my bills and I'll be fine. You know what I mean? But I'm not satisfied here.
Yeah. I wasn't satisfied. I just wasn't happy. I mean, even what I'm doing now, I mean, it has its ups and downs, but I'm a lot more happy doing what I'm doing now than what I was doing, even when I first moved to Dallas or even back in New York. So, I mean, I feel like I found what I wanted to do, and I'm trying to figure out the rest of my life and just kind of organize everything else, But obviously, this war kind of threw a monkey wrench and everything, where I'm I'm prioritizing back home more so than anything I got going on here for myself personally. But yeah, I mean, I'm, it's always good when you found what you like to do, because that's like the hardest thing. Like when you go to college and they always have those courses for like the kids in the first year who can't figure out their major.
Mhm.
And let's be honest, a lot of people don't really even work in the field. They don't. I know I did. So like, I mean, I feel like the whole like people feel trapped to work in the field that they majored in. You really don't even have to do that. But it's a struggle when you don't know what you want to do, or even when you don't know what you want to study. But it really just comes down to trying different things. I mean, I figured out what I wanted to do literally off a random post, just a random post. Scroll through my news feed, and people thought social media ain't good for you. Like they say, social media is not.
I'm like, social media is a tool. If you don't know how to use that tool, that's a you problem. Okay?
For real. Like it could be a blessing and a curse depending on how you use it. You just gotta use it the right way. But I mean, definitely, you just gotta try different things until you figure out what clicks for you. You know.
Yeah. No, that's hella beautiful, and I hope somebody might have got saved. Some kid right now that's in college and struggling, and they parents trying to force them into this shit. Like, yo, I just turned 30, okay, and I'm still figuring it out. You know what I mean? I'm still letting it unfold. Every day I'm like, oh, that one thing I learned in that one class, like I'm using it right now. It's wild. You know what I mean? Like you don't know how things will show back up in your life, but like I feel like college and what you're saying is really key, like that, the exploration of it all, like.
And I feel like even the classes, like those can be misconceiving because I'm a hands-on person. I can learn about something and think I want it. And then when you actually doing it, you're like, oh no, I don't even want to do this. You know what I mean? So like you actually got to be hands-on and try. I mean, I'm a hands-on person. I'll speak for myself, but I don't mean like I have to actually try different things before I want to pursue it like as a career field. So learning it in a book or in a classroom, for me, it just wouldn't work. So I mean, college. It was good for a lot of reasons, but I probably could have been doing what I'm doing even without college. Maybe without the loans. But I mean, socially it was great. Definitely, like networking wise, it was great. But yeah, I think our parents do overemphasize the importance of college, and now like because they want you to be an engineer, lawyer, all three of those have to go to college. So. But I think with our generation, we're starting to learn like, college isn't for everybody, and you can find something that makes you happy without college. There's very successful people who maybe went to 1 year of college or didn't even go to college, and just took up a trade and they're happy as can be, doing what they're doing. They love what they do. So, yeah, I don't want to even put the pressure of college like on the people who are younger than us. If college isn't for you, you can try different things and just see what works for you. And college is always there,
Yeah, you can always go back. It ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, college ain't. There's no age limit on college. Like you're not gonna outgrow it.
No, I'm telling you, like my master's program, I had people who's like old, like they were coming back to get degrees because it meant something different. You know what I mean? Like for me, when I took a 3-year gap before I got my master's, and it was very intentional. Like I chose a program that I was like, I want it to be practical. I want to be able to apply this like right away, and it was like, I had a clear vision of what I was trying to accomplish before I chose a program. You know what I'm saying? So like for me, I know that I can work in structure. Like when it's structured like that, it's helpful, but I'm also hands-on. And what's always been my saving grace is like, I do it like as soon as I learn it. Like I experiment on myself a lot. So people get the benefit of me experimenting on myself. Like I tell them all the time, I'm a case study. Okay. I'm not your role model. I'm your case study. Learn from my mistakes, take my wins. Okay. But I really experiment on myself. So like any class that I took, I would immediately turn around and try it in whatever role I was in, and like, oh, okay, I'm learning all these psych tricks. Let me tell you something about us psych students. We really psychoanalyze the hell out of ourselves. Okay. So it's like, You
I
know,
believe it. I believe it. Because I've definitely talked to a psych student before, and yeah, the analytical skills are ridiculous. Like it's like, yeah, she would tell me like the stuff that are going on in her head when we're just like watching TV or doing whatever, and I'm like, you thought about all that while that was on, like, and yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like the analytical skills are wild. Man.
Oh yeah, I read him a meme before this. We'll just leave it off there. But yeah, we do a lot of funny stuff, right? But I think like that really hits home, and I feel like that's probably a lot of bit about or a lot what the advice would be for the younger people. Like I feel like you hit on it without me even needing the question. Is like, yo, like if college ain't for you, it ain't for you. You can figure things out. You can take your time, right? Like chase love, not money. I think those were all really, really good gems. I'm wondering now, because I realize the time and I want to be respectful of yours, that like, is there any other advice that you would give to your younger self or younger people, and or how do you feel like this ties into the legacy that you want to leave?
The advice I would give to my younger self is time flies. Time really
Mm,
flies, and cherish every moment. Cherish every moment, man. Because man, yeah, cherish every moment. Because I mean, I'm in my mid 30s now, so it's crazy. But I remember like graduating college, and like now I'm out in the world, and you just have to kind of figure yourself out. And I probably wasn't even ready for it because I just kind of went through the motions of the same things I was doing, on my summer breaks in college and everything like that. I wasn't really set for, oh, I'm ready for my career now. Like I still had a lot of growing up to do, and um, I probably got it a little bit late, but I mean, I eventually got what I needed. And as far as my legacy, just perseverance and fighting for your people. Never, always enhancing your knowledge of self. There's always more you can learn about yourself. There's always more you can learn about your people.
mhm.
Um, and it's never too late to do something. Never too late to do something. Uh, it's always better to do it late than to never do it. Always
Yeah,
better to do it late than to never do it.
you brought us full circle because you said it in the beginning too.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I love that. And I really hope people are picking up on the gems that you're dropping here, because it really is that. Like we just all saying it in a different language. You know what I mean? Like different words, whatever the case is. But I look across parallels of, because I grew up with diversity, and so did you. So we have these friends that are from different ethnic groups, different backgrounds, et cetera, and we all live through the same stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like I can insert country here, and I'm sure that they have just as many issues, or whatever, etc. But at the end of the day, like we're here, and our only job is to be loved. Our only job is to explore and try our best to leave this world better than we got it. You know what I mean? And that's it. Like everything else is just extra. Like
No, absolutely. I mean, you always want to leave an impact on the world, or at least on the people that are close to you. You want to leave a legacy to be remembered by. When you pass on. You want something to live longer than you.
yes.
Something that lives longer than you. So, that's definitely what you're doing with your, with your platform right now. This will always be it. So, and we always gonna have plenty of good times. So
Yeah.
we got a
Yeah.
long, we got,
And
we got a long way to go.
oh yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I want to say to you too, because I like, I always like to affirm my guests, and I choose y'all for a reason. It's just that I feel like part of your legacy and the beauty of what you're saying is that your transparency, you know what I mean, and your honesty, and like your willingness to take the risk, you know what I'm saying, and like your willingness to like try and fail and actually chase your happiness and your love and have the audacity to do that instead of taking the safe road is so admirable, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, taking the safe road, I mean, there's good and bad to it. But in the chances I've taken in my life or the risks I've taken, it's only because I knew what was at the end of the tunnel for me. And I knew I wanted what was at the end of that tunnel. So, I mean, at that point, if I knew I was going to be happy, if I made it through that tunnel, I was willing to go through whatever, to get to the end of that tunnel. It's different. It's different when you don't know what you want, or you're trying to figure out what you like, what you love, because you could get to the end of that tunnel and not be satisfied, But I knew what I wanted at certain points in my life, and I was willing to go to the end to get it. And I mean, I think it's worked out, great for me. And I would definitely tell like younger people to do the same thing. Find what you love to do, and do not do it for money. Do not do it for money. I'm telling you, like money, money is not the end all be all the happiness. I promise you that. Money is not the end all be all the happiness. Like there's people with money that are miserable. I've seen it, and they have a lot of money, and they are miserable. So, like, trust me, like, find something you love to do, and just roll with that. But make sure you love to do it. Try to do something that you would do for free and make money off that. That's the best way to do it. If you can do it for free, and you just happen to make money off it, and even better if you make great money off it, then that's what you need to be doing. That's really what we should be doing. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you work 8 hours a day. If you work 8 hours a day or something, that's a third of your life. If you live to your 60, that's 20 years you're doing something. That's a third of your life. The other third, you're probably in your bed. So like sleep.
Yeah.
So that's about 1/3 of your life where you have a chance to enjoy it. Why not spend at least 2/3 of your life work and play where it's something you love to do? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a much better quality of life that way, And
he said the math is mathing over here. Okay.
Yeah, it's all math. It's 24 hours in a day. You're going to work 8 hours a day. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to count the weekends. I'm just going to run it across. But, like 8 hours a day, like 24 hours. 8 hours a day you working out of 24. You might as well do something you love. Like, why spend 8 hours being miserable for a check?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to bring down your entire day, trust me. Because even when you get out of there, you're going to be mad you got to go back there tomorrow. So, I mean, do it for love. Don't do it for money. Do not do it for money. Do it for love.
That's going to be, listen, and that's going to be a wrap on that. If you didn't take that gym down, I don't know what to tell you. I just want to let everybody know, and thank you, Fresh, for coming on. We had to re-record this, so y'all know he really rides with me, because he really was like, I got you, don't even trip. And I was like, thank you for real, because your girl was struggling. Make sure y'all are following Free Tigray. The sweater out here, we really repping that. Make sure that you are still participating in our advocacy efforts. If you're from a different country and you got stuff going on, let us know. We want to support too. But yeah, like y'all, this has been Black Men Speaks. I hope they picked up them gems, Fresh, because you was giving them.
No, definitely. I'll drop my handle real quick. Handle is Fresh Prince of Adwa. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, Clubhouse too, or Hang Time #4 days. You can find me on any one of those platforms. And
I'm gonna put the link in the bio, so y'all make sure you following Fresh. Yo, he keeps it real. He keeps it transparent. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's not too many of those in the world. Okay, so you got to keep them around when you find them. And so I'm happy that I was able to meet you, that I was able to grow with you in the last year, through everything, ups and downs. Okay, we have plenty of those ups and downs. That's it. So y'all, that's Black Men Speak Sundays. This is the Uprooted Network, and I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow for Manifest Mondays. Peace out, y'all.
Peace out.